Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating brother. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, thank you, Ms. Gertrude, for having me on the show. My name is Janga Bussaja. I'm originally from Beaumont, Texas, and I've been in Las Vegas for about the past 7 months, but I kind of travel around a lot. So my story initially, I was, like I said, born in Beaumont, Texas, and to some hardworking parents. And Beaumont is a very family and family orientated community. And so my dad was actually from Port Arthur. My parents, they were never together. And my mother actually married another guy who was everybody in that area worked in the petrochemical industry. And so they was working in the refineries. And this was around the mid 80s. And unfortunately, my stepdad fell victim to the crack epidemic. And that led to me moving with my grandmother. So when my grandmother was a very virtuous lady, a great example. I'm so thankful for everything she taught me. So Granny had me in the church real heavy, of course. And but she also instilled a real deep passion in me of reading. And one of my fondest memories is before I could go outside to play on Saturdays, she would make me read Proverbs. I had to read Proverbs, but she really wanted me to have wisdom, and she just wanted me to understand the world. Something else, I remember being 9 years old and her telling me, well, grandson, what's 18 divided by 2? And I was like, well, it's 9, Granny. She's like, yeah, so, I mean, you half a man. So, playtime almost over. And she was trying to let me know that, I was in the real world, and that, the world wasn't going to be kind to me as far as understanding the rules. And so I'm very grateful for her. I ended up graduating at the top of my class as a high school student. Graduated third in my class, went on to college, and I played basketball, but I had some knee surgeries and that didn't work out. And so I graduated college. My degree was in electrical engineering. And before I even graduated, I got a job working for Siemens Energy. And I was going to be a field service engineer. And it was a really good opportunity. I was traveling a lot. I was 25 years old. I was basically like making like 6 figures. And I was working a lot. But at the same time, I started having some work-life balance problems, you might say. And also, my grandmother had developed Alzheimer's. And so this was very concerning for me because I was with this lady, and I used to, she used to pray with me, and I used to hear her prayers. And she worked. She was like a nurse. She worked at what was called a neurological center, and so she worked with troubled patients, people who maybe had some mental health issues, and so it was important for her to be kept in her right mind. And I would hear her prayers, and she would pray to be kept in her right mind. So when she got Alzheimer's, that I'm beginning to have some questions, and so following with everything that she had instilled in me as far as learning and seeking knowledge and seeking wisdom, I began to really read and try to get some understanding about um, organized religions, or as about the history of how the religion was put together. And so that opened up a rabbit hole. And so I would say I worked in corporate America for about 3 years, and then I had a little bit of a midlife crisis, you might can say. But at this time, I was starting to really understand the story that had kind of been hid over my eyes, like the veil had kind of been removed a little bit as far as understanding the world, understanding racism, white supremacy, and all these different things. And so, yeah, that was a really rough time because I was just reading a lot. I was alone a lot, but I was learning a lot about the real world. And so had a break from society, kind of, and I think this is something that's important because I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was telling me that his cousin was having some issues, and I think a lot of black men are having this issue where we understand that something just not right. Something is just not right, And then you start doing research, and then with the age of information, with the internet, we're presented with a lot of information, and sometimes when you start to research and start to come into the knowledge of some things, you can get a little bit upset. And so I like to identify with brothers who have come into some knowledge, and it wasn't necessarily what they was taught or raised in, and they're trying to learn how to deal with that and they find their place in the world. So I definitely went through that stage, and I always say that I had the protection of my ancestors, and my grandmother was with me because I did something that wasn't too bright after that, but it just happened to be my path. And I was in the black underworld for like the last for about 13 years, and this was just a period in my life where I just felt compelled not uh, to go along with society. I didn't want to fit in with society. I had no place. I had no room to want to fit in with what society said a black man should be like or how he's supposed to act. I had no desire to fit into that, and I was just doing my thing and living and just kind of rebelling. Not kind of, I was rebelling a lot, but also throughout that time, I was still studying, so I was still reading, and I couldn't present my lifestyle as far as like on social media or anything like that. So, but I was a kind of popular guy where I'm from, so I still wanted to have a voice about my life because from the outside looking in, people had pretty much a strong opinion. Like this brother was an engineer, and now what is he doing now? And so a lot of people thought I was a little crazy. And to be fair, I probably was a little bit crazy. Like I said, society has an image of what a black man is kind of supposed to do, and I was not that. So I can understand how it maybe rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but I was just being true to what was inside of me, and in order to deal with that, I became a philosopher, and so with that, it gave me some room to express myself about how I felt and the reason why I had dropped commitment to society. And so, to go along with that, the first thing I started to do was create some films on YouTube. And this was around 2014. And that summer, there was a lot of police executions of unarmed black men. And it was a phenomenon that we see all the time. And it just was kept, going. I kept turning on the TV and the news, and it was just so. I was studying Dr. Wilson, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Francis Chris Wilson, and Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And they had all the answers. They had all the answers to all my questions that I had about police, about this. I thought he had a weapon thing, and everything that was going on within racism, white supremacy. So with that, I made a couple of different films. Some of them was even banned from YouTube, but they was really deep. They're still on YouTube, and it gave a lot of people a lot of insight. So that was, I would say, like a lot of my theoretical experience and learning about racism. But at the same time, mind you, I'm in the underworld, so I'm a big target on my head, or being in this society is like playing the game on all Madden. These guys play the football game and they put it on the hardest level. I was playing the hardest level of life with a constant target, destruction, death, and the penitentiary always looming over my head. So the things that I was learning was also serving a practical purpose for me, because I was always having run-ins with the police, but understanding how to handle the police, how to talk to them, understanding the power dynamics when dealing with the police, understanding that this man can smoke me right now. He might get away with it. Understanding that beforehand is important in dealing with these police, with these encounters, because it just changes the way you handle them, understanding that. And so it gives them it makes them feel a little better too, because you could respect them and you could play the surrender game. Hey, and then they can do their job, and hopefully you can go home and not have your family on the news. And so, taking that was, I'd say about 2 years ago, maybe about 2.5 years ago. I wrote a book, and this book was kind of like the culmination of everything of my philosopher career, of everything I kind of learned as far as the theory and practical, what I was getting in the streets and the lesson I was learning there, and seeing people kind of throw their lives away in the street. And this book was called Introduction to Planetary Shifts. And the term was based on Dr. Wilson's research. And from that book, it snowballed into a whole system. And so I wrote another book because anti-racism was a real popular thing in 2020 after Mr. Floyd was executed. The country kind of galvanized behind the anti-racism effort. Excuse me. And so the whole anti-racism movement, I challenged it in my second book, because basically Planetary Shifts is based on counter-racism. And so anti-racism, understanding the definition as Dr. Wilson teaches it, anti-racism is basically a big attempt to try to force white people not to be racist. And I think that's just fundamentally a bad idea, because the whole world was set up for them to benefit right now. In colonialism, how many people were killed so that Europeans or white people will have this thing right now. So, anti-racism is a very dangerous principle in my opinion, because from that we've seen a rise in domestic terrorism everywhere, and a rise in something called the Great Replacement Theory. And this is what we found white supremacists to be doing in their circles. They're talking about being replaced. Ironically, this matches up extremely well with Dr. Wilson's research, which has been tried to be denied by mainstream society. And what she basically said that um, the dominant white society has historically treated people of color bad because they feared a genetic annihilation. And now the current generation of white supremacists are basically saying the same thing. They're basically saying, "Hey, we're the minority on the planet, and we feel like we're being replaced." And they use this as an excuse to commit acts of terrorism. And so um, I put this research together in a paper, and this research connecting past theoretical scholarship to current white supremacist ideology is the foundation of the Planetary Chess project now. And so now I've started learning public relations and learning the art of trying to get this message out, and was fortunate enough to cross paths with you and with other people who want to really work on this problem and really want to solve the problem and really have enough courage to even address this issue. So, and that's kind of how everything has went since
Wow.
taking off on this journey.
Wow, Janga, you've had an amazing, amazing story. Your formative years had a very solid base by the sound of it, with your grandmother being that grounding force that kind of made you the man that you are. And the fact that you did slip but came back and continued studying is really an inspiration. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind Planetary Chess and how it aims to address systemic racism?
Yes, ma'am. So again, planetary chess was a term coined by Dr. Wilson, and what it basically says is that the racism problem is a really big chess game, and but once we understand how to play the chess game and we understand the rules, then we can win, and anyone can win with that type of understanding. And my inspiration was just from my travels and everything that I've seen from the different places I've been in the world. It seemed like everywhere I go, it seemed like black people was always at the bottom, and it's always a concern to me to understand that from the different places that I've seen, and I've always cared about something that I could do, and I came to ultimately realize that it was just all based on knowledge. It was all either a lack of knowledge or and so I just wanted to kind of fill that gap, and I came across the scholars who do information. So I don't really feel like I'm that major here. I feel like the real heroes are Dr. Wilson and Mr. Fuller and Dr. Amos Wilson.
That's just amazing. So, life is a game. Once you know how to play the game and how to move the pieces, you can succeed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you see technology, particularly AI, playing a role in fostering social change and addressing issues of racial injustice?
I think AI is playing a huge role in that for its ability to democratize information. And so I remember it used to be said that if you wanted to hide something from black people, you could put it in a book. And with this information era and with AI, it's not hidden anymore. So when you talk and talk to AI and you get answers. And so the information that was previously hidden with the information with the internet and the information era is available at our fingertips now. So I think that's the most biggest thing about what AI is doing. Now, AI still has some issues, and so one of the things we want to do with Planetary Chess is we want to create a large language model based on Black scholarship, because the models are only good as the data that they're trained on, and unfortunately, they can reveal some biases within itself.
And how are you using AI in everything that you're doing?
Oh, so I use it so much. I really started get deep diving into it around March, but one of the main ways I use it is to help with public relations and connecting with people like yourself, and getting putting my message out in the media. So, excuse me. AI is great for just processing data. So if you give it some data and you give it some really good instructions, it will do almost anything. So I've really one of um, the best things I've been doing is helping with my social media posting. And so now you can automate your social media posting. You can give it parameters, give it instructions, and then every day you can post something for you and you don't even have to do it. So I mean, that's just been one of the most best things because sometimes posting on social, being on social media can get a little mundane, and you're going from site to site to site or whatever. But now you can make AI do it for you, and it's really not that hard.
That is amazing. So, what impact has Planetary Chess had so far? And what are your future goals for this project?
Well, I think a lot of the impact has been through the YouTube films, and I feel a lot of people will leave comments or they'll get in touch with me, and they'll say, "Wow, you really opened my eyes," or "That was something real profound," or it may, or even sometimes it go a different way. Sometimes people are maybe a little bit offended by something I might post, and then they may start researching it themselves, and then they come back later and they'll be like, "Yo, I really didn't like what you said, but I had to look it up, and it really helped me open my eyes and see some things." So I would say that that's the biggest impact that it's had on people to this point, but definitely hoping to take it to another level with the planetary chess.
And the fact that it's like a game as well. How is that reaching the younger generation? Our youth, our teenagers, they learn through play, and gaming is very much a way that they can take in information. Have you incorporated that as well?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for asking. So within the planetary chess system is a chess game that we're currently developing, and I'm using AI to help me develop it right now. I'm really bad at coding. I failed computer science 3 times, and that made me switch to electrical. So, but AI is really helping me because when I have errors, I can give it to AI, and it kind of helped me through it. But our chess game is basically we want to we want to create an interactive chess game, and people this way we can teach people from themes from the book, and we have it's pretty cool because we want to create it in a metaverse, and we created a metaphorical leader of systemic racism, and it's Baby Stewie from Family Guy, which is pretty interesting. But just to make things kind of light a little bit, not too heavy. Stewie, if you watch Family Guy, I don't know if you're a fan, but he has a time machine, and he wants the world domination. And he hates his mom and everything, so he's like a little spoiled kid. So in a lot of ways, I think but at the same time, Stewie's brilliant at the same time, but he's a kid. So I think in a lot of ways that kind of represents a good metaphorical opponent against who we playing against. The system of systemic racism is a dying system. It's on its way out, but yet and still it's still very manipulative and it still sets traps. But it's kind of an immature, childish thing. So if we can rise above it and look at it as it's not this big, it's just we just got to figure this out. It's just once we figure it out, we can beat it. Then we will beat it.
I love that. So, you've had a unique journey as a philosopher, artist, and entrepreneur. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in these roles, especially when dealing with the social issues like racism?
Well, the biggest challenge I've had was just getting people to even listen to me. You would think that someone could say, "Hey, I've created a system to end systemic racism," and people might perk their eyes and look up and say, "Really? Well, tell me about it." But that wasn't the case. It was like I was putting this message out, and nobody was really interested in it, and so that was a major deal that I had. But and then I started studying public relations and mixing public relations with AI, and something kind of magical happened because uh, I think AI really kind of took my voice and it kind of mellowed it out a little bit. Maybe I didn't have I didn't have the right amount of sincerity to get past some of the gatekeepers, but the AI really kind of just mellowed it out and said, "Oh, okay, well, let's talk to this guy." And using that, I've been able to really, really get the message out there and find people who are really interested in this message. People in my personal network, even though I maybe have over 4,000 people in my personal social media network, for some reason it just wasn't of interest to them. So I had to go a little bit bigger, and so it's been
Right.
working pretty good.
So, how does the AI powered newsletter Dismantled work to democratize civil rights knowledge? And what role does AI play in shaping narratives around race?
So I'm glad you asked that because I just the newsletter it comes out twice a month on the 1st and the 15th, and I kind of I like to think of it as I kind of brought Malcolm X back to life, and so I took a lot of his books, and I took a lot of books from counter racist scholars, and I put them into this GPT, and this is kind of a precursor to the what I was talking about earlier, to the large language model that we want to create, because we want to create an AI that has all the knowledge from our best scholars and put it in this one place and draw from their wisdom, draw from the years or the life of knowledge that they strove to leave to us. And we want to also apply that with AI's data processing ability. We want to combine that with the news stories of today. And we want our best scholars to analyze the current events and then give us wisdom. And so that's the whole idea behind the Dismantle newsletter, is that, um, Malcolm X is kind of coming back through artificial intelligence to give his 2 cents about current events.
Wow, that is revolutionary. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
So given the skepticism around AI and big tech, how do you ensure that your projects are received positively and truly serve the communities that they're intended for?
Um, okay, I think that's a good question. And I think President Biden recently came out and he had his first order concerning AI, and he had some concerns about the biases in AI. And the President Putin basically raised some concerns about the biases with AI. So I think that it's important. I think that the planetary test and what we're doing is important in that overall conversation, because like I said earlier, these LLMs are only as good as the data they're trained on. And so to kind of go deeper into that, I made a research paper, and I had asked AI to analyze this research paper because uh, AI is being used in medical fields, and it said, oh, well, we can read, it has the ability to spot things before the human eye can do it, and it goes through so many millions of different data. And so when I gave the research paper to AI, I kept seeing this recurring thing. It kept saying something to the effect of how important marginalized voices was in the racism conversation, and over and over again. And so this represents the biases that's in artificial intelligence, because it almost goes to say that, well, why are we having a racism conversation if marginalized voices aren't in the conversation? Being that we're the victims of racism, how are you going to have this conversation without us? And
Yes.
so this is
Oh,
really something
wow.
big that's within the AI field right now, is that we have to be aware is that these data systems are only as good as the data that they're trained on.
Yes, yes. Wow. So, in developing technological solutions like planetary chess, how do you ensure inclusivity and representation of diverse voices and perspectives?
Well, I think the big thing about planetary chess is I don't think it's not for everyone. It's for the people who identify with the struggle, or because you got some people like Senator Tim Scott, and he says that America is not a racist state, or there's no such thing as systemic racism. What's the guy in California, Larry Elder? And so it's not for everybody. So if they feel that way, okay, I can understand that. But for people who feel like this is an issue, anyone, and they could even be white people who maybe identify with some things of systemic racism, right? And
Yes.
um and so anyone who feels like that they're in that trap and then they want to learn how to empower themselves against this oppressive system, it's for them. So it's not um, nobody is blocked from using it, and anyone can gain access to it, just to the information and to the knowledge.
Yes. Okay. So, can you discuss the educational components of your initiatives and how they contribute to a broader understanding of systemic racism?
Yes, ma'am. So when we talk about systemic racism, one thing I've found recently is I like to give it a simple definition because it can be a little complicated to understand. So my simple definition is systemic racism is the remaining fragments from colonialism. So colonialism is something I call original racism because we got 15 different racism definitions now. And if you look up the definition of racism from someone other than Dr. Wilson, it's going to tell you something about mistreating somebody else based on color. But that's not really accurate because racism is a system of power. So if it's not no power behind the mistreatment, then it's just a prejudice. It's like saying, oh, I might be prejudiced against somebody, but I, as a black person, I can't practice racism against somebody because the system of racism is something that was invented by the Europeans. You see what I'm saying? So, in understanding that, then we could say that systemic racism is only traps from that remnant of time, but it's really something that's kind of dying out, and which creates a dynamic to where it's like, hey, if we just understand what's going on, we can stop falling for these traps. That's basically the largest educational component to answer your question is history. And it's like Malcolm X said, history is our best subject because without a really firm understanding of the past, you're disillusioned about the present and you can't really come up with a proper solution for the future.
Wow. Now, when you look to the future, what do you envisage as the future role of technology in advancing social justice, particularly in particularly in the fight against racism?
Well, I was really big into Bitcoin and crypto before I got into AI. And um, in my opinion, I really fell in love with Bitcoin. I studied it, I broke it down. And Bitcoin it's just a computer program, but it's aggressively attacking traditional finance. And if I could say that in a different way, I would say that it's aggressively attacking the white supremacist arm of finance. So that's why I got on board with Bitcoin because I'm like, wait a minute, you attacking finance, you attacking the system of finance. That's a big thing. And
Yeah.
so in the same way, Bitcoin is a decentralized autonomous organization. And Planetary Chess is the same thing, meaning it's a crypto-based organization. And
Right.
with that, we can set up a community just like Bitcoin, a community of like-minded people who used education to come together and really attack something big. And in the same way, we can do that with systemic racism.
I love that. So, how do you engage with and empower marginalized communities through your technology and art initiatives? A lot of times it's challenging because these communities don't have access to the technology. What are you doing to bridge that gap?
So we haven't actually began to bridge that gap beyond our films and beyond people can watch our films and learn that way. But what we hope to do is by pushing our media out there, talking like with you and talking with others, we hope that we can use our art as a way to really um, catalyst our movement, to fund the movement, and then we can create our games. And but through the art and gaming is our main ways to really connect with these communities, because art and gaming, like you said, if we could put it in a game,
Yeah.
our people are good at games. You teach it, if it's a game, we can run it. Once we figure it out, we can win it. And so with that, and then art as well, art is just such a transcendental field where it can reach so many people. And so our art movement is called racialism, and it's based off of Sun Tzu. And so we want to empower artists at whatever age to come up with artwork that reflects the themes of Planetary Chess, which is know thyself, know thy. And with that, that's what we was talking about earlier, a decentralized autonomous organization. Within this, what we call a DAO, we can, in the future, we can reward the youth, whether they make a film or whether it's artwork or music, any type of artistic expression where we're empowering ourselves to end systemic racism. I want to I want to incentivize that, and that's a main theme of Planetary Chess in the DAO, is to reward that type of artwork.
Okay. Now, when it comes to children and young people in high schools, how do you think this technology can be used to catch children while they're young before society, their families, embed certain values in them? And I'm asking this question because when I lived in South Africa, I noticed that when my children were little, they were about 3 or 4 at the time, they played with everyone. All the other kids played with them. By the time they were about 6 years old, going to school, their peers started calling them niggers. They started calling them kaffers, which is the word for nigger in South Africa. And I noticed that, racism is something that you are taught at home. You're socialized into that way of being. So what can school systems do to teach children while they are young, especially using this kind of technology, to be aware of what's right and what's wrong? Because when you're at home, your parents are people you look up to, you revere them. So what your parents says goes, right? How can we use technology to change that, do you think?
Well, that's interesting. And it was a test that they used to do with the dolls. You probably seen the doll test. And so that goes to say that even before it gets to the home, society is already kind of priming us to have this type of reaction towards black and white. And
Mm.
so, yeah, that's a big thing that we're fighting against. But at the same token, the thing about social media, and I discovered this the other day, listening to like a mentor, somebody that I study from, and they said that social media has connected the world. And so if when you have a voice or something and you make something and it has a big impact, it's not it impacts the world, and we're going through a change. And so I think that especially the younger generation, social media is such a big part of their life, and they
Yes.
are so like, when I'm probably the last generation, Generation X, or I'm on the cusp of the millennials, but we grew up probably the last generation before the internet. So when we was growing up, if somebody told us something, we had to listen to it. And but in this day and age, when you tell a kid something, they can go and Google it, or they can go and ask Chat GPT, and they're going to get some information that might not go along with what your parents said. So um, it's a different break with these kids, because they're learning a lot faster than we did, because a lot more of the world is available to them through social media. And so
Yes.
I think that it's just important that this system even exists, because just existing alone fights some of those societal norms.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now let's just go to your book, Introduction to Planetary Chess. Can you outline the key principles of the book and
Yes,
how it processes to replace, proposes to replace systemic racism with justice?
yes. So one of the things that I'm probably most proud about the book is when I talk to people about the book, and I hear uh, a lot of people talking about dismantling systemic racism. And I said, well, listen, Planetary Shifts has a formula and a methodology to end systemic racism. And what that means is when we go back into the history of understanding our whole fight against systemic racism as far as a Black people, we see that it's only been really one time where we really whooped systemic racism, and that was during the Haitian Revolution. And when we go back, and so if we've been losing a lot, if we keep losing this game, if we losing this game, but if we look at the one time we did win this game, then we have to come back and say, well, wait a minute, what did they do? What did they have going on there? And so
Yes.
historians like Mr. Robert Greene and Professor James Smalls, they say that the Haitians stumbled upon a copy of The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Zoo.
And
Okay.
so and so that is really the guiding light of the book is that the formula for beating systemic racism, because systemic racism is a type of war. So if we can liken systemic racism to a war, which it is, because the war attacks Black men, makes us unable to lead our families, and then thus puts us on a genocidal slide, right? So if we say that, okay, this is a war, then we have to go to Sun Tzu and say, well, how do we win this war? Sun Tzu said, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 1,000 battles, because you're going to get the victory. And so that's everything that the book is based on. Number one, in the chess game, we're gonna need this. The first part of the book is just understanding the playing field, and
Mhm.
the book is broken into three parts, just like a chess book, which is beginning game, middle game, and the end game. If you read a chess book, they break the game of chess down into those three sections. So in the book, we want to say at the beginning game, we need to understand the playing field and understand the right proper definitions. And then in part two, we say, okay, now we need to know the enemy. And part three is know thyself. And so that's the whole formula of the book. And once everybody, Dr. Wilson said this, and once everybody understands uh, who the real enemy is, which is systemic racism, then
Mhm.
everybody can become leaders.
Oh, wow. That's pretty powerful. So, as a former corporate engineer, what advice would you give leaders in the corporate world to effectively combat systemic racism within their organizations?
Okay, so I would say that, like, again, planetary chess is based on counter racism. So, in counter racism, I would say for all these companies, and I've been challenging these big companies and corporate social responsibility teams,
Mm,
I've been challenging them with this. Can you provide empowering information to Black people? And as far as systemic racism, the systemic racism is really conversation can get really confusing,
mm,
and because it goes a lot of different ways, it's a lot of different definitions. But from my understanding, I always want to know is I'm not interested in trying to change what white people do. I'm more interested in what and how we react to things and how we understand them. So for to a corporate company, I would say, what are you doing with your all those corporate funds to empower Black people, like to really empower Black people to avoid systemic traps? And
mhm,
when I talk about systemic traps, we talk about all the popular items that people might say, well, you might say the penitentiary or the jail or healthcare or police accountability, all these different things. How are you empowering Black people not to keep falling for the same traps? And
Right.
that's what I think that should be their, if they really want to help, that should be where your focus is at.
Mhm. So let's talk about the role of education in dismantling racism. In your view, what is the role of education, both formal and informal, in dismantling systemic racism?
Okay. So that's a very complicated question because where where we are, so you kind of diving into the critical race theory conversation because the dominant society doesn't kind of divorces themselves from the past, and they don't want to acknowledge what I'll call original racism or colonialism. They don't want to study nothing about that. It's kind of funny. I seen a white guy, and he was saying, he said no wonder he was learning the history of colonialism and learning how the fact that is no place where Europeans went during this time where peace and where peace followed the indigenous people. There was no place that we could say that they went where it was peace and love to the places after they got there. It was always death and destruction. And
Mm.
so when he read that and really understood that, he said, "Well, no wonder we don't want to teach critical racist theory. Our ancestors was the worst people on the face of the planet, maybe in the history of human beings." And that may be a true statement. So we have people who are in denial about the past and don't want to understand how we don't live in a vacuum, separated from the past. The past is with us today. And
Yes, yeah.
so that's a tough question because our education have to benefit us, and we can't expect for an oppressive system to give us the education we need. That's just not the way that's just not the way it works.
Yeah. So, what future projects or goals do you have in mind to further your mission of replacing systemic racism with justice?
Oh, so the major thing I'm working on right now is the chess game, and I'm working on this chess game, trying to get it going. And I really feel like within planetary chess is a theme we call racial jujitsu, and what it means is it's just like understanding that the system of race, if you're a black person or person of color, the system of racism is coming at you all the time, and you have to learn how to kind of roll with that and use it against yourself. That's what jujitsu is, kind of using your opponent's energy against them. And so understanding that we can take these blows and let it strengthen us and give us more strategy on how to handle it. So um
Fascinating.
the chess game is the most pressing thing right now, and then of course after that it's the formulation of the large language model. And so that's kind of the things on our roadmap right now. And so the way the system works is after the large language model is formed, then about every 7 years we kind of want to we want to rerun this project. We want to ask our large language model, hey, what's the state of systemic racism? And then we want to reproduce a book. So like my book was called Introduction to Planetary Chess. In 7 years or in 5 years we want to write another book, Planetary Chess Volume 1. And we want to come back and revisit everything and say, well, what's the state of systemic racism? And then
Yeah.
7 years down the line, we want to do the same thing. We want to look at the LLM, we want to tune it, and we want to say, well, let's write a new book, Planetary Chess Volume 2, because we want
Okay.
to keep chronicling this thing and studying this thing till there's no more, till it's done. So the
Yeah.
planetary chess is a continuous, ongoing process of knowledge, of knowing ourselves, knowing the enemy, until we can render the system useless.
I love that. Wow. It's a living process. There's no end to it, really.
Right. Because it's the systemic racism has been going on for 400 years. It's a living process. So we have to have something that counters that and thinks as long in the future, as long as they was thinking as far ahead as they was thinking, we need to be thinking that way as well.
Yes, yes. Now, if I can take you back to the younger you, the young man who set out on this journey to make a change in regards to social justice, if you could go back and give him three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would you say to him?
I would say keep meditating. Uh, I would say stay strong and and who you believe you are, and in your own thoughts, and to be confident in your own mind, and to stand on what you believe in, no matter who's standing with you or who not with, who against you. And those would be my three things to remind myself. That definitely to meditate, to block all the noise out, stay strong in who I am, and to, you know, never back down, and stand on what I believe in.
I love that. Now, my final question is going to be a little bit weird, but I'm going to teleport you into the future. You're now 90 years old. You're sitting in your rocking chair on your porch, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. If I could take you into the future to have a conversation with the 90-year-old you, this wise man who has led you up until this point, what would you say to him when you finally get there?
Um, I might I might just ask him. I just want. I don't know. That is a little bit of a question. I've never thought of better. I met a really older gentleman one time, and the one thing I really wanted to ask him was what was his number one secret. So I guess maybe asking that to myself, I would just want to know maybe what did I enjoy the most, and what brought me the most joy, and that's a very interesting question. You know,
I'll tell you why I love asking people that question, and you'll get this. Time is an illusion. Time is a construct that human beings have put together so we get to work at 8 and we finish at 5. Time does not exist. Your past, your present, your future exist in the same timeline.
hmm
So what I've done for myself is when I am working on something, when I'm struggling with something and I'm searching for answers, I play into the energy of who I am becoming. So I'll go to bed with a question in my head, and it could be as simple as, what is my next step? What is my next step? And I will wake up in the morning with these knowings, this light bulb moments, these insights, right? The
hmm
human mind does not stop processing things for us.
mm
Even in our sleep, we tap into the subconscious part of ourselves, right?
Right, right.
So learning to tap into the future you to guide you, he's already here inside you.
hmm
You would not be doing this work unless he wasn't there. That old man is just waiting for you to catch up with him. Can you see it now?
Yeah, yeah.
Already here. And the problem is with most people, we start doubting ourselves. That little voice that tells you go left, go right, say no, say yes. That intuition that we use to guide ourselves through the challenges we're coming up with, learning to recognize the voice, to hear it when it talks to us, and to trust it.
Mhm.
So you can collapse time and jump from where you are now right to where you want to be when you're 90 and experience it while you're still in your 30s or 40s. How
Mm.
about that?
That's big. That is mind blowing a little bit, and it really gave me some really deep thoughts when you were saying it. I was just thinking like, uh, you said something about going to sleep and how what you take into your sleep soaks deep into your subconscious mind, and how you get answers, and those, studying history, that's what they said was black people's biggest talent in the ancient world. I once read was our ability to communicate with our dead ancestors. And
Yes.
I think that is what you just said was a way of how you receive that information from that higher place, or the inner place. And so
And,
yeah.
and you're getting it from both sides, right? You're getting it from both sides. You're getting it from your ancestors. Janga, for you to show up in 2024 as a Black man in America, you are standing on the shoulders of giants. The DNA that runs in your blood for you to be you in 2024, just think about it.
Right.
For them to survive those slave ships from Africa, the brutality of slavery in the United States, 400 years of it. And then you show up and you think you have nothing behind you.
Right. Right.
You
No,
know, we
our ancestors are with us.
it excites me when I ask this question to African people because we have no idea the psychological strength that we have.
You're right.
You know, I come from Zimbabwe, one of the poorest countries in the world. Poverty like you have never seen. You can throw me in the middle of the desert without a cent and I will survive. And it's not that I'm smart, it's because of these shoulders that I stand on, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And then zapping into the future, this future world that we're trying to create. You can experience this in your lifetime. If you play with the energy of this being that's inside you and that's guiding you, and talking about what you're working on, you know, I find that my most creative ideas come when I'm in dialogue with another human being. So if I'm stuck, I will tell anything that walks and anyone who will listen what I'm working on. And then it's almost like you will attract the right people who have the right ideas. Somebody can just say one word that turns everything around for me. And then that aha moment drops, and I know exactly what my next step is going to be.
Yes, ma'am.
So time doesn't exist, it's an illusion. We can create a world where racism is a thing of the past, and we experience it in this lifetime while we're healthy and vibrant and not having to wait until you're 90 to get to it.
Yes, ma'am.
So you and I are going to have fun. I absolutely love the journey you are on. And I want to honor you for listening to the prompting and acting on it. A lot of people are given these ideas, these urges, these promptings, and we don't act on it. We think, oh, how can I do it? I don't have the money. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the how. The minute you start with how, you kill that dream before you even start. So we need to look to the future. What am I creating? And get very, very clear what that future will look like. And time will collapse. The right people will show up. I mean, us meeting like this is not an accident. I was trying to think how I found you. I have no idea. I don't even know how your name popped up into my awareness. And now we're having this magical conversation. You know, I tried to go back to my emails. I went back on LinkedIn to see how I connected with you. We weren't even connected on LinkedIn until a few months ago, right? So the universe is working with us and for us, bringing like-minded people together to create magic so we can leave this planet a better place than we found it.
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
next generation. So thank you so much. Any parting thoughts for my viewers?
I'm just so honored to be on your show to talk to you. You have such a great story as well. And like you said, I do not believe in coincidences. So I'm just really thankful for you having me on your show and giving me a chance to talk about this because I've been working on this for 10 years. Really, it's been a 10-year ordeal. It's since my first film that I really put on YouTube. So definitely this is a legacy, what I consider my legacy, what I want to leave behind to the world through my experiences. So I'm just so thankful that I can have this conversation with you.
Well, I'm really honored to be the first to put you out there. It's going to be the first of many. And I want to see how I can help you do that, to get your voice right across the planet. You have something amazing here, something that is going to change the world. And I want to be a part of that. So thank you for showing up in my life.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. I am going to be bringing you people from all walks of life, brilliant minds, amazing stories, people who are changing the world for good, so that one day we can celebrate our diversity as human beings. So be back again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant global conversation. My name is Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you heard today is a thread in the rich fabric of our shared humanity. As you step into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by simply looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep learning, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast, signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and stay connected.